Hey everyone, and welcome back to another explainer. Today, we are going on a pretty intense, high-contrast journey together. I want you to picture starting out in this dark, chaotic, stormy ocean, which is basically how most people experience a traditional bear market. It's scary, right? But over the course of our analysis today, we're going to navigate right out of those choppy waters and straight into this calm, completely peaceful, orange-lit harbor of sound money. We're going to break down an incredibly powerful concept called the gift of the dip and show you how new investors can entirely flip the script on how they view market crashes. Okay, let's just dive right into this quote because it immediately reframes that totally normal fear of a crash into a highly analytical, empowering strategy. Picture a young professional standing on a pier right in the middle of that storm we just talked about. But instead of panicking, they're just calm, casually looking at a tablet. Why? Well, because while the rest of the world sees a 50% market drop as an absolute tragedy, this specific mindset, what's called the action scientist, sees something else. They see a regulatory arbitrage window. It's a rare, temporary chance to legally position yourself before massive institutions take over. So while everyone else is literally stampeding for the exits, the action scientist is methodically building an escape hatch. To them, this isn't a crash at all. It's quite literally a discount on your future sovereignty. Let's start with Section 1, the confiscation of time. To truly appreciate why we even need this escape hatch in the first place, we have to understand the insidious nature of the storm we're currently swimming in. We gotta call the problem what it actually is. Now, most people just call it inflation, but the source material gives us a much more accurate and honestly kind of chilling definition. It's the slow confiscation of your time. Think about it like this. Money is just stored work, right? It's the physical hours of your life turned into something you can hold in your pocket. So when a central authority prints more of it, they aren't miraculously creating new wealth. They're just quietly reaching into your pocket and skimming a little bit off the top of the hours you already worked. It's basically like trying to carry water in a bucket full of holes. You're running on a hamster wheel where the system quietly and forever steals the wealth you thought you were securely saving. And if you want to see the math on that theft, we can look at Michael Saylor's concept of monetary half-life. Just like radioactive materials decay over time, all money leaks energy. If the dollar is losing roughly 7% of its purchasing power every year, the math tells us the half-life of your money is just 10 years. That means every single decade, the dollar cuts your stored energy exactly in half. Poof, gone. Even gold, the historical gold standard, leaks energy. It has a half-life of about 36 years. Bottom line, if you are sitting in fiat currency, you're essentially sitting in a room where the oxygen is slowly being pumped out. Which brings us to Section 2, reframing the storm. Now, what's really fascinating here is how we look at those chaotic, completely terrifying 50% market drops that always seem to shake out the new investors. Instead of freaking out, the action scientist actually looks at the data. We're pulling from astrophysics and market history here to see these crashes not as random, unpredictable acts of destruction, but as mechanical waves. We see what scientists call log periodic bubble modes. I know it sounds super academic, but in plain English, it just means mathematical patterns of buildup and release that mirror the exact same physics you'd see in earthquakes or material failures. These market drops always follow a specific psychology. First, there's a denial phase. Nobody wants to believe lower lows are coming. And then bam! A brutal 50% capitulation plunge that totally wrecks market sentiment. To the untrained eye, it looks like a disaster. But to the action scientist, it's just a perfectly natural, synced-up 4-year cycle low. It's an incredible entry point. Moving on to Section 3, the ultimate exit. So, the absolute most crucial point of all this is finding that one true lifeboat, the thing that can pull you out of this cyclical, wealth-draining storm and get you into a calm, reliable harbor. And here it is. 21 million. This simple number represents the absolute certainty of Bitcoin's fixed supply. Think about it. For all of human history, every single kind of money was controlled by someone who could just, make more of it. They could stretch the ruler whenever they wanted. Bitcoin is the very first ruler in the history of humanity that no central bank, no sudden financial crisis, and no election can ever stretch. The supply is fixed, the release schedule is public, and there is literally no off switch. It is the ultimate exit from that hamster wheel. And timing is everything, because right now we are sitting in a massive regulatory arbitrage window. Just look at recent legislation like the ARMA bill, which is designed to regulate digital assets. Governments are currently making moves to lock Bitcoin into actual United States law. The significance here isn't just about the numbers, it's a qualitative shift. We are moving from temporary executive orders, which, can change the second a new administration steps in, to hard, permanent statutes. Once this institutional permanence locks in, it fundamentally changes the global calculus for sovereign wealth funds and central banks everywhere. And the window to front-run that institutional permanence, that is exactly what the action scientist is capitalizing on. Next up is Section 4, Beware the Paper Illusion. Look, as we navigate our way to safety, we have to be incredibly careful to avoid the false harbors. These are traps that simply recreate the old fiat casino, just with a shiny new name. We have to sharply contrast the broader crypto industry with true Bitcoin. The source material points out that most of crypto is basically just hyper-financialization. It's all about endless altcoin trading, massive leverage, and 24/7 gambling. It's essentially just the financial sector trying to skim a bigger slice of the GDP without actually producing anything real. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is sound money. It's a completely new monetary technology focused on absolute property rights. It acts as a true store of value, meant to entirely replace the fiat system, not just build another flashy casino right on top of it. All right, Section 5, Building the Escape Hatch. Let's talk about how you can practically, systematically build your own wealth during these terrifying market dips while completely removing human emotion from the equation, because emotion will get you in trouble. Here is the action scientist's manual in practice. Just look at this protocol. It's a completely mechanical trigger. Instead of sitting there guessing when the market has finally hit rock bottom, the system automatically sweeps cash into a spot Bitcoin position whenever the asset drops 5% from its 30-day high. It's a strict buy-the-dip rule that doesn't require any timing at all. It triggers just frequently enough to compound over time, literally turning market volatility into a pure automated accumulation machine. And this leads us to the macro view of that strategy. It's what's called a SAT flow diagram. By the way, sats or satoshis are just these smallest fractions of a Bitcoin. This diagram is an incredibly detailed architectural blueprint pulled straight from the research data. It visually maps out the exact tributaries of your daily income, from things like alimony and tips, all the way to investment yields, and it shows precisely how they are mechanically routed toward your ultimate financial sovereignty. It's like plumbing for your wealth. Let's actually break down those 3 steps so you can see how it works. First, you identify your inflow sources. This could be everyday tips from a job or what they call a volatile harvest. Like, say you suddenly sell your old couch on Facebook Marketplace and get a quick burst of cash. Second is the conversion path. This is where you utilize tax-advantaged accounts like Roth IRAs or HSAs or automated apps like Strike. Finally, you have the SAT endpoint. This is where the funds officially land as fractions of a Bitcoin. You can use Queen-tier ETFs for this, or ideally, King-tier cold wallets. By strictly following these 3 steps, you turn every single dollar of everyday inflow into an automated, totally emotionless machine that constantly stacks sound money for you. And that brings us to our final stop, Section 6, the King tier. This is it. We have finally reached that calm, orange-lit harbor we've been navigating toward. It's the absolute peak of this financial hero's journey. True wealth, at least as defined by this framework, isn't held in a brokerage account, and it's definitely not a paper IOU. It's held in the King tier. We're talking about an invisible, off-platform, self-custody cold wallet. Essentially, it's a digital vault that is completely physically disconnected from the internet. This is where your satoshis live under your absolute, unquestionable control. When you possess the private keys, you hold an absolute economic right. And as the sources remind us, for the past 100,000 years, every economic right was merely a privilege granted by whatever ruling class was in charge at the time. But the King tier, it gives you a property right that is absolute, profound, and entirely unique in the history of humanity. I want to leave you with a pretty profound thought to ponder as we wrap this up today. If you can hold an asset so perfectly secure and so truly yours that you could literally take your private keys to the grave with you, whose reality are you storing your time in? Think about it. When the next storm hits, and trust me, it definitely will, are you going to trust the rulers who always stretch the ruler? Or will you anchor yourself in the math that never lies? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time as we keep breaking down the invisible systems that shape our world.